So last year, just to give a little recap, because we dived in quite technical with the Gaon Vilna. We discussed the concept of neshikot pihu, right? And the question is, first of all, why many neshikot? So we explained that it's not many neshikot, it's one kiss that involves two kisses, right? You can have a person that kisses another person, but the other person doesn't kiss. When we talk about neshikot, we're talking about two people, okay, aware, engaged, and willing to kiss each other. And this is what we're craving for and what we're requesting. Yeah, we're begging, when will be that day where I will be able to kiss Hashem and have Hashem kiss me, or the Nefesh says, when I will have this connection with the Neshama, or Knesset Israel saying the same thing, when will HaKadosh Baruch Hu kiss me and me kiss HaKadosh Baruch Hu? When will that fusion, that connection will come back? We explained the dimension of what Neshika means, right? And the Pihu, says the Gaon Vilna, goes back, the He and the Vav is a merging of Piha, her mouth, and Piv, his mouth. And when you put her and him together and they both engage, it becomes Pihu, the P of the wife and the husband. And we explained that the He and the Vav both represents the first two diberot of the Torah. The Torah, Shebichtav, the 10 commandments were given in a very interesting way. The first two commandments we heard straight from Hashem, right? Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God, and you will not have another God but me. Those two commandments we received directly from Hashem himself. Everything else was given through Moshe. Those two represent, if you will, the high level of all the mitzvot of the Torah. So, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God, which is the positive, proactive mitzvot, commandments, have in it all the mitzvot aseh, all the proactive mitzvot. The Lo Yelecha Elokim Acherim, you will not have another God but me, which represents all the Lo Ta'aseh, all the prohibitions of the Torah. So, and then the Gaon explains, and that's important for the rest of the Pasuk, he says that from that came Shiv'in Panim La Torah. The Torah was given in a way that you can have many different explanations to the same thing, right? So the derivatives of those two mitzvot can bring 70 facets to each commandment, to each mitzvah. Shiv'in Panim La Torah. And we see that, for example, there is always a concept of 70, okay, with two that preside. For example, we have 70 nations, but two preside, Ishmael and Esav. Okay, so you have, the world is made of 7, except for Am Yisrael, 70 nations, with two that preside all those 70, which is Ishmael and Esav. Then you have Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin is made of 70 judges with two that preside, right? So it's 70 plus 2 all the time. Why? Because we need to get to a level of 72, which 72 is the numerology of chesed, of kindness, which is what the world was created with. But also 72 is the name of Hashem that refers to the world of Atzilut, the world of noblesse. Okay? So every time you have a constellation of 72, okay, you basically tap into the core essence or the core essence of the will of Hashem in creation. Okay? Now, when it comes to the Torah, okay, you have 70 facets to the Torah, okay, with two mitzvot that prevail and preside all the mitzvot, which is Anochi and Lo Yeh Lecha Elokim. The Gaon explains, and the reason why it's so important to talk about that 70, because Yayin is also the numerology 70. Yud, Yud, and Nun. 10, 10, and 50 equals to 70, right? So, says the Gaon Mivilna, in the structure of the Vav and the He, you find the masculine and the feminine, right? The Vav represents always the masculine. Lo, Oto, Shelo, right? Bishvilo. The Vav represents always the masculine. The He represents always the feminine. La, Ota, Shela, Bishvila, right? So, when you take the masculine and the feminine, when you take proactivity and restrictions together, those two opposites, right? Proactivity and restrictions seem to be polar opposites, but yet there is a way to bring them together and to create a union and fusion between the two. When you're able to create a unity between the two through the pei, right? With the pei, with your mouth, you have the ability to take opposites and bring them together and create shalom and create harmony. This is the connection, this is the power that allows a person to elevate himself to a level of connection that is not so common to humans. Good? This is the pihu that we're talking about. We're talking about the connection of the pei, the connection of the mouth, right? The ability to communicate, to kiss, or to verbalize certain situations, certain situation in a way that you take opposites and not only bring them closer, but put them together. Now, there's a secret to it, because the way it works, if you look at the wording of pihu, it doesn't say piva. The vav doesn't come before the he. First you have the he, and then you have the vav, right? Which means that there is an order that needs to be respected if the person wants to get to that level of unity, which is what? The he before the vav, the female before the man. You have to give place to the receiver before the giver. If the giver put himself first, so he's not giving, he's taking. But if you put the receiver first, and you're trying to really benefit the receiver, that's when that's when the giver can actually, benefit the receiver. That's why the he comes before the vav. In terms of avodat Hashem, it's the same thing. Sur mera va'aseh tov. First, you guard yourself from averot in order to do mitzvot, right? A person that wants to do only proactive mitzvot but doesn't care about averot, he will never be able to get anywhere. Okay? Every time the giver, the proactive, puts himself first, it's a sign of selfishness. It's a sign of territorial position that puts the giver in a place where he's not really giving, he's not giving room to the other person, but just imposing his way and giving what he needs to give in order to bring others closer. Here, the Torah, the Shlomo Melech tells us, if you want perfect harmony, it has to be pihu, the he before the vav. That's what the Gaon teaches us. When we have that, then says Shlomo Melech, then this unity, this level, ki tovim dodecha miyayin, your love, dodecha means your love, your expression of kindness, expression of harmony, of unity, is greater than wine. What does wine mean? So the wine, the Malbim explains, it's beautiful. He says the wine is what elevates a person and can take a person out of his sorrows out of his problems. It represents richness. It represents things that are very valuable, right? So Shlomo HaMelech uses the word wine to refer to all the physical pleasures of the body. And says the Malbim something fantastic. He says you have two ways to elevate yourself. Or you have the body, you infuse the body with wine, and the body now is so light and feels so good that it allows the spiritual aspect of the person to just blossom open and elevate himself, right? Nichnas yayin yotze sod. Sod is also gematria 70, right? So yayin is 70, sod is 70 also. So when one way to open the sod, to open the secret, to open your locked potential is through the infusion of wine, of pleasures to the body. When you fill up the body is now satisfied, so it allows the brain, it allows the neshama to elevate himself. One way of seeing this very clearly, anybody that has a little bit of conscience, and is aware of what he's doing, when a person chas v'chalila does a avera and he fails, right away he has a boost of chizuk. He feels terrible and he has clarity. Very terrible, yeah. The clarity only comes after the avera is done. The person falls and then he realizes what he did. Well, he didn't know that before. Yes, he did. But like we explained, that there's a fight between the heaviness of the body and the spirituality of the mind. And when the two of them go at it, it's very, very difficult for the spirituality, for the neshama, to prevail until you actually build it and build a protection around it. When you satisfy the body for a very specific moment, there is tremendous clarity. And then the person can, he feels bad, he understands what he's done wrong, or he should have never reacted, or he should have never said what he said, or did what he did, whatever it is. But until that point, until the satisfying of the body, the mind is almost paralyzed. The neshama is almost paralyzed. So the Malbim says, and this is part of the phenomenon, that when you satisfy the body, you release the neshama from the heaviness of the body that can now, open up. In this case, it's referred to the wine that really gives satisfaction to the body and almost put the body to sleep. Yeah.
Rav, how does Hashem decide? Because there are two ways to bring somebody closer, right? There's through blessing and then there's through a curse, right? You could give somebody a ton of beracha, and that will, like you said, satiate them and allow them to feel comfortable enough where they now go and pursue Torah and pursue mitzvot and do things. And then there are the kind of people that need to be knocked down and in order to grow closer to Hashem. How does Hashem decide which avenue to choose in order to do something?
The responsiveness of the person. What your question is, the answer to your question is in the word re'eh of Shabbat's parasha.
I saw it in the Rashi this week, and I underlined it, and I was just thinking about it. Where is it? Yeah, it said, usually the reward for a mitzvah is the opportunity to repeat the performance of a similar commandment. And then it says, those who are careful to perform the commandment of tzitzit would be rewarded with beautiful clothing, which he can affix to tzitzit. Like it was showing the relation to physical pleasure and mitzvot. Is that what you're talking about? Is there somewhere else?
No. That's the word re'eh. That's the word re'eh. When a person has the ability to understand what Hashem is trying to tell him, and he's responsive to it, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will act or react accordingly.
Right,
so
but does that...
it always comes first beracha. Meaning...
okay, that was my question. So it always comes first beracha.
Yeah, the slap comes at the end. It's like a spiral. You understand? HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives the person the beracha. The person doesn't understand the beracha, so he starts squeezing from the most outer layer, and then the person doesn't listen, so he goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until at the end he strikes the person. That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, Mishem Rabbi Yosef, Hodu Lashem Kitov, my Hodu Lashem Kitov. It's in the Gemara in the Masechet Pesachim. Rabbi Yosef says, why David HaMelech says Hodu Lashem Kitov ki leolam chazo? What does it mean? Hodu Lashem Kitov. Praise Hashem for his for his kindness. What is my Hodu Lashem Kitov? How do you see Hashem, doing something good to a person, to a level where the person can say Hodu, praise Hashem. Ashrei sheporea chovo shel adam b'mamono. Lucky is the one that Hashem takes his money instead in order to pay the person's due. A person does a avera, HaKadosh Baruch Hu needs to come and take his due, right? So lucky is the one that Hashem decides only to take the money, versus lo alenu health, shalom bayit, lo alenu kids, or rahman al-Islam, things like that.
So what can we think about when it comes to beracha in any area of our life, whether it be money, it could be health, right? Which I think we take for granted very often because it's just when you feel good, you forget about it, right?
Absolutely.
Anything. It could be success in physically, anything. What's the proper way to think about it so that you understand the message in the beracha?
So that comes from the analysis of what is called the third eye. There is
sechel?
Yes, the ena sechel. The ena sechel is the re'iyah, is the ability to see things that are not physical, but the actual potential of things. So the more the person brings forward the outlook of the third eye, the more he has the ability to see in things the beracha versus the kelala. You refer to the tzitzit. If you look at there's a secret behind that. Because the tzitzit is uri'item oto. How many times do we kiss the tzitzit? There's 3 places, some say 4, but where we kiss the tzitzit, right? הקנה פתיל תכלת, דבר רבי ניסן אמרתם, ועשו להם ציסית על כנפי וירידם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציסית הכנף פתיל תכלת.
היה לכם ציצית.
אתם אותו וזכחתם, right? On the אותו, we kiss it again. וזכחתם לכל מצוות השם ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם. Some people also kiss בעיניכם, אבל זה okay. Those are the 3 places where you kiss the tzitzit. Okay, and what is the anhaga? What do? We take the actual tzitzit, we put it in front of our eyes, and we kiss it. Okay, the third time we kiss it twice. Okay, for uritemuto, right? We kiss it twice. Now each eye, ayin. If you look at the gematria, ayin is ayin yud nun, right? 70 plus 10 plus 50 is 130, right? 70, 10, and 50. Is 130. Good. So we have five times the name of Hashem in each eye. If you do 5 times 26, is 130. Okay. If you take the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that refers to the brain, okay, is Eki Aleph He Yud and He Behein, that equals to 151. Okay. If you open it and you write Aleph Lamed Pe He He Yud Vav Dalet He He, it equals to 151. If you take the inner part of it, right, the depth of those letters, meaning you take 151 and you take off 21, is also 130. Ayin. Okay, ayin. This is the ayin of the sechel. Now, going back to what you're saying, we have 3 eyes. We have one eye from the right that sees favor. We have the left eye that judges and is more analytical. And then we have the ayin sechel that sees the potential and the beracha and the emet in things. When a person make sure to protect his eyes and to make sure that he has pure eyes and not look at things that are improper, okay? And to the level, okay, of not seeing a Jew being mechalel Shabbat on Shabbat, or even a woman that is impure. The Ramban writes that a person that is kadosh, okay, all right, in a cup of water, he could see the blood of a woman that is impure in the room. He doesn't even have to look at the lady.
Wow.
Okay, those are the levels of the power of the eyes, and not to get into it, but it's a shiur of its own, the eyes. But so the more the eyes are pure, the more we empower the Ein HaSechel. How do we do that? By taking the kedusha of the tzitziot. Okay, the tzitziot is a secret of its own. Be'ezrat Hashem, that one day we'll zoom in, and we take all those and we bring it to our eyes to have the kedusha, the holiness, the purity of the tzitzit. Okay, purify our eyes so that now we can empower the eye of the sechel. This is the kavanot of the tzitzit during the Kriyat Shema. So, and that's the re'eh. That's the re'eh. Unfortunately, and we'll see, it's beautiful that you're raising it, but it's one of the senses that we totally lost pleasure from. We'll see in the next pasuk when we talk about the smell. The Gaon Mivilna addresses it beautifully, and where what happened to humankind from and what we lost. So, if we go back, if it's okay, good.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
So if we go back to what we said, so Shlomo HaMelech says, Ki tovim dodecha miyayin. So he says your love, your connection, right? Your kisses, dodecha. The word dodecha is expression of love. Okay.
Right, when you say somebody dodi, like it's...
Yes, exactly. Ani le dodi or lecha dodi, exactly, my beloved. Now, going back to what the Malbim says, that there is two ways to elevate a person. One way, like we said, the neshama. One way is to alleviate the heaviness of the body through the wine, through the pleasures, right? The other one is to empower the neshama through an infusion of kedusha. The Rabbi Chaim Vital, in Sha'arei Kedusha, in a book it's called Sha'arei Kedusha, writes that when a person it's very aligned with what the Rambam said, but from a different angle that we addressed in the past, in the last year, when the Rambam says when a person is struck by the light of Emet, right? So says the Rabbi Chaim Vital that when a person gets infused with an inflow of neshama, okay, that is greater than what he is used to in general, he has a desire of connection that is so strong that at that moment, right, he is widely open to absorb and internalize a lot of Torah. There are moments like this where a person can be infused with tremendous injection of neshama. Now, this is it could be a little confusing because we spoke about the Gaon that it says that when a person feels very light, it might be the Yetzer Hara, right? The heaviness of it's the Yetzer Hara. Have you spoken about this in this show?
I don't remember.
Okay, so I'll speak about it. Maybe it's in fundamentals. So the Gaon Mivilna says, how does a person know that when he has an opportunity to do a mitzvah?
Oh, we did speak about this.
So Yetzer Hara.
when the one that's hard is usually the one that's good.
That's right.
Yes.
So we did discuss. So the comes now. So we have, on one hand, we see that when there's a struggle, that means that Yetzer Hara doesn't let you do a mitzvah. So that's, then you know that it's real. But then you can have an inflow of kedusha, of the neshama, that elevates you. So it all depends on the situation. If there is a situation that comes before a person, and the mitzvah is an odd mitzvah, meaning the mitzvah is too light, the actual mitzvah, it's something that is happening too easy. We have to ask ourselves the question: is it really a mitzvah or is it a setup? But when a person learns Torah, he's in the middle of learning Torah, or he's trying to learn Torah, and after the hardship, right, he opens up and he has a super high. Says Rabbi Chaim Vital, this is an inflow of kedusha. This is an injection of neshama in his essence. Going back to the Malbim explains to us, you have two ways of getting a spiritual high. Again, one is by alleviating the heaviness of the body. The other one is by a tremendous spiritual experience. So what Melech says, I crave the spiritual high. I crave it. But the way, when it comes through an injection of spirituality, this is much, much greater than having to alleviate the heaviness of the physicality in order to get to a spiritual connection. This is Yishakeni mineshikot pihu ki tovim dodecha miyayin. Our love, a spiritual high that comes from kedusha, is much greater than an elevation that comes because I took care of the body. Why? Because if you need to take care of the body in order to elevate yourself spiritually, that means that you are dependent on the body, right? That means that you stay physical, and your physicality is what rules your life. So in order to get spiritual, you always have to be dependent on the body, right? Who wants that? So says Shlomo HaMelech, or the Nefesh says, I'm tired of having to give to the body in order to be spiritual. Let me find my own connection in order to build that ruchaniyut, to build that spirituality independently.
Beautiful.
Okay, which is very, very important. Why? For example, and we'll take that resolution down. Sometimes, we became, especially in our generation, very needy. What does that mean? We go to shul, the chair has to be comfortable, the AC has to be perfect, the chazan has to have the right pace, the right tone, right? And if the ecosystem is not perfect, we react. What is this? Haji already? This guy speaks too long. This guy goes too fast. Yeah, and we react. But all this goes back to what the Malbim says, that we need to give to the body in order for the mind, for the neshama, to be able to be free. Everybody, says the Rambam in Shmoneh Prakim, every individual, until he actually graduates, okay, from that behavioral system, okay, is bound to that. I need to take care of the body in order to be spiritual, right? The direction we want to take, what we want to be able to accomplish, is that we develop a connection and intimacy with HaKadosh Baruch Hu that is fully independent from my body. So if we can exercise, our and create this independence. So for example, not everything has to be perfect in order for me to have kavanah, but you know what? I can have kavanah even if it's not the AC doesn't work perfectly, or if there's somebody behind me talking and it might bother me, I need to try to develop an inner connection that actually encapsulates and isolates my relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu without having this dependence of the body. Tremendous lesson. And I will tell you, when I came to Yeshiva in Eretz Israel, my mashgiach, Rabbi David Elaluf, he put me next to someone. He saw that for me, tefillah was extremely important, and he let me sit down next to someone that when he was praying out loud, and he was moving a lot, and he was bothering me. He was, I was trying to have kavanah, and the guy is jumping, and you instead of praying quietly, he whispers in your ear. So in the beginning, I went to my mashgiach, I went to the rabbi. I said, "Listen, Rabbi, you need to move me from there. I can't. I'm trying to concentrate." The guy, said, "No, this is where you stay, and you have to be able to build yourself and connect with Hashem, and get to the point where you don't listen to the guy anymore. You can't hear him. And you know what? The more you build yourself internally, you get to the point. I got to a point where it didn't bother me anymore." Exactly. And the same thing is applied in Shalom Bayit. In Shalom Bayit, we have things that are irritating us, okay? That are bothering us, or that are bothering our wives, or whatever it is. If you let that needy, requests, all right? That the needy nefesh, the animalistic side of you prevail, then there's always something that's going to bother you. You're always going to find those little things. But if you're able to build, again, this protected and encapsulated connection with your wife, and from within, then nothing's going to bother you. It doesn't matter. Whatever bothered you in the past will not bother you anymore. You won't even kind of realize. You're not going to see it.
And is that the result of connecting over physicality with your wife versus spirituality?
So, yes, obviously. So the idea is the opposite, right? The idea, this is what happens when a person is physically connected. Yes.
Yes, that's what I mean.
You connect spiritually. Yeah.
You can't get bothered by it.
That's right.
Because it's not, your love isn't dependent on the physical.
That's right. Exactly. Did I mention once the Rambam on Hilchot Nida?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
The Rambam, it's okay. It's always good to refresh anyways. But so the Rambam has a letter that he addresses to a community. And in the letter, he wants to speak about the importance of the separation between a husband and wife when the wife is Nida. And he explains and he says there's a question that we need to ask. He says when a woman gets pregnant, for 9 months, right, she's pure, right? She's not Nida. And then when the water breaks and she's about to give birth, she becomes Nida. So he says, I don't understand. It almost sounds like cruel. For 9 months, the husband and wife get physically together, right? And then when the woman needs her husband the most, at the time of labor, the husband cannot touch her. He can't hold her hand. He can't tap her on the back. He can't, touch her hair. Nothing. Finished. She's physically on her own. How is that possible that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would bring? It's almost a tease. Brings a husband and wife together for 9 months. 9 months. That's it. Almost to the point where they forget what it means to separate themselves during the time of Nida, and at the time. The most sensitive time for the wife at the time of the birth, she can't even hold her hand, hold her husband's hand. That's the question of the Rambam. The Rambam answers the following. He says that there is a rule, a fundamental rule. It's Rihuk Hagufot Mehayev Kiruv Halevavot. The separations of the bodies forces the hearts to come together. It's a fundamental rule. Okay? Can you say the separation of the bodies forces the hearts to come closer. And the Rambam explains as follows. He says, when husband and wife get married, okay, well, there is an intimacy, there is a connection that is physical, right? Comes the Ilchot Nida, the laws of Nida, okay, are here to reinstate a connection that cannot be put in place when the husband and wife are physically together, because the physicality originates from selfishness. I please in order to be pleased. This is physicality. But at the beginning, the Torah comes and tells us this is important, but this is not where we want you. The Shalom Bayit, the power of unity between a husband and wife, is a completely independent connection from physicality. When and where do you build this connection? During the time of Nida, during a time where you're not allowed to touch your wife, right? So some people say, okay, so I cannot touch her, so I'll see you in 2 weeks. Yeah, and which is wrong. There is another communication, there is another bond that needs to be developed that has nothing to do with, my pleasure, which is just love, which is just caring, which is just listening and sharing. So when a person develops the hearts, when the hearts come closer, when this new pipeline is created, this new pipeline of love and unity is created, it is much stronger and much more powerful than the bond of physicality. So, says the Rambam, when this connection is vivid and vibrant and alive, when the woman goes for labor, she doesn't need to hold her husband's hand, because emotionally her husband lives in her heart and he lives in her heart. So she knows that she's fully connected and he feels what she feels. Going back to the koach of the neshika, right? Of the transmission of neshamot. Now this connection, okay, creates a completely different dimension when it comes to intimacy. You understand?
That's beautiful.
This is kitovim dodecha midayim. So I know you guys have to go for tefillah.
Wow, that was great.
Hashem. Okay, we finished pasuk bet. Baruch Hashem. All right.
Thank you, Rob. Love you.
I love you both. Shavua tov.
Shavua tov.
Bye. Bye.